Alright, this is my audience for my fifth and final speech titled Ethics or Not. Suicide is defined as an intentional taking of one's life. If suicide involves taking your own life, one's own interests, how can good come of it? Ethics is a study of human conduct and the choices we make. How can ending one's life be the source of true happiness when happiness is defined as having a sense of well-being? Not only is well-being out of the picture, but more importantly, the very essence of life is stripped as a result of suicide. Ancient Greek philosopher, specifically Aristotle, taught his alumni that one should act in accordance with their nature or duty to be content and thus receive self-realization, which, according to him, was the key to happiness. Following through with his teachings, nature does not compel one to end one's life, but to face the problem or problems and look for the possible viable solution. Not the cowardly and egoistic end that would certainly cause more harm than good, especially to those who love the individual, if not himself. Causing more harm than good is precisely the antithesis of a hedonist who seeks to attain happiness by means of maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. Suicide, as an understatement, is far from maximizing pain. Even the most stoic and grim philosopher of the past, Epicurus, believed suicide did not harmonize with the natural machinations of life. Epicurus taught about freedom from material attachments, certainly not freedom of one's own life. As we see, regardless of which point of view or which study of human conduct, suicide is obviously not an ethical decision. Touching back on the implications of the cowardly act of escapism by means of suicide, we can never disregard the negative effects suicide will burden on the victim's loved ones and family. In fact, leaving financial burden to your fellow employees, or especially family, is against Kant's theory of duty. To the person that is set on committing suicide, their psychological egoism, in other words, their self-motivated interests, ultimately compelled them to end their lives as an outlet because they were not courageous enough to face and pragmatically resolve their own problems. Name a human being that does not have any problems. Certainly, we all agree that we all do. Suicide simply isn't the solution to them. Now, let's talk about euthanasia. Euthanasia is basically suicide with a special twist. Euthanasia involves the death of a person at the hands of another. Out of context, this may be misconstrued as murder out of context. However, what differentiates it from murder is its intention. Intention plays a key role. If someone is in their deathbed and begs for their death, killing them would nurture their desire for suicide. As mentioned before, we have come to the conclusion that suicide cannot cause the greater good, therefore it is unethical. However, what is the intention with euthanasia? The intention is to relieve the pain and suffering of a victim in a terminal condition. The key to practicing euthanasia ethically is not to practice it on demand of the victim's request. Pain is not a valid enough reason to be put to death. We currently live, as we know, in a very advanced medical treatment society. The ethical procedure is to do as much as possible to save the victim's life, which supports German philosopher Immanuel Kant's theory of the categorical imperative, which is, in essence, a contemporary interpretation of Jesus' famous teachings of the Golden Rule. On the other hand, if we have ethically done everything in our power to treat a victim who is terminally ill in a vegetative state, and yet there are no signs of betterment over an extended period of time, then why prolong the inevitable? What do you have to say about our third topic, abortion? Is it okay to meaninglessly end the life of a would-be healthy premature baby? Why do we have eco-activists protesting against environmental hazards and animal extinction when abortion is clearly accepted in our society as a means of turning back the hands of time? Abortion undermines our integrity and high morals that we believe and the sanctity of human life. To better understand this, let's compare euthanasia with, which is also known as mercy killing. As previously mentioned, the end of the victim's life is after everything. The power of modern medicine is done to save that individual's life. The difference with abortion is that the baby isn't even given the opportunity for choice. Another important point is the intention. I related abortion with that of an ethical egoist because they are only thinking of themselves and not their unborn child's life. There have been several reported cases showing many women, after years of aborting, feel empty and unhappy for what they did years, even decades after the operation. This teaches us a very important lesson. If abortion was ethically good, by default it would be impossible for it to cause harm. Being tormented with guilt for ending the life of an unborn child, especially yours, shows enough, if nothing else, that abortion is unethical. Well, I hope you enjoyed this presentation explaining 3 highly controversial topics and agree with the ethical stances against suicide, abortion, and certain instances of euthanasia.